Well, thank you for joining me.
Great.
We'll start with the same question I ask everyone.
Great.
Where did you come from? What's the background? Where did you study? All of those important questions.
Well, I'm a Los Angeles born Armenian, so I guess I'm second generation. Uh, Father's side was in business,
Mm-hmm.
and so they did all the rubbish hauling companies here in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles. If you think of Armenians in business in Los Angeles, it's the rubbish hauling
Yeah.
companies. And then on my mom's side, my grandmother was a genocide survivor from Van,
Mm-hmm.
and she survived being sold into slavery in Constantinople.
Uh,
But the lady who bought her
uh,
helped her go to America after a few
uh,
years. So the mother's side is very dramatic story.
yeah.
But I love Armenia. I've been there. I worked there. But I'm an American,
Yeah.
and
So, how about a
you
little
just
bit about what you've done in Armenia since you've worked there?
sure. After graduating at USC,
Mm-hmm.
I worked there in the International
Mm-hmm.
Students Administration,
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Mihran Agbabyan has just started to form a new university in Armenia
Mm.
called the American University of
Ah,
Armenia,
I see.
AUA.
Uh-huh.
So here he was with a new university. Here I was with the same job description
Uh-huh.
as running a university.
Uh-huh.
So we married that together, and I went there for 2 or 3 years and helped them get that started.
Uh-huh.
Very much at the lowest point
Yeah.
of Armenia.
Yeah.
The blockade, Azerbaijanis shut off the
Yeah.
gas. They
Yeah.
shut off the nuclear
Yeah.
access. The Turks, the border shut.
Yeah.
And I got there in January when it's the freezingest, most coldest
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So it was really an immersion, and I got to see Armenians, how resilient they
Yeah.
are in the worst conditions,
Yeah.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So
And I know you
I'm
did.
so much happier, and it's better now.
Yeah.
But it took a lot
Yeah.
of, but the Armenian spirit didn't, no problem with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Still, the grandmothers would go to Shuka
Uh-huh.
with their bags, and
Uh-huh.
they would trance through the snow carrying the groceries back home,
Yeah.
and no gas, luischika,
Yeah.
huischika.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything was. But an example,
Yeah.
I was visiting a lady who was to become my wife later.
Yeah.
Her neighbor invited me into her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
No heat,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Couldn't even afford oil for the stove.
Yeah.
So she says, Ramatsek,
Uh-huh.
coffee, yes, Uzum. You want
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
coffee?
Yeah.
So just over the little chemical tablets, she's preparing Armenian coffee,
Uh-huh.
and when she's speaking, you can see the mist
Uh-huh.
coming out of her mouth
Yeah.
from how cold it is.
Wow.
But she's just doing the Armenian thing of being friendly and
Yeah.
loving, and it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how things were.
Yeah.
So that was an example I like to give to people
Yeah.
of how we are.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I was gonna ask you about the armed forces. You were in the armed forces School of Music too. I don't think I've ever met anyone who studied at the School of Music. How was that
Uh,
experience?
well, that was before USC.
Mm-hmm.
So after high school, I went into the Marines,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I was able to translate my piano playing into something that would pay.
Yeah.
So they send you to regular boot camp, and you become a regular Marine first.
Mm-hmm.
But then the School of Music is in Little Creek, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
not far from Norfolk. And it's a 6-month course that all Marines, all Navy, all Army,
Mhm.
all the basic take, but I was good already coming in. I'll just pat myself for having graduated at the top of my class.
Yeah.
Being a pianist, I think it's a tough fit because it's not like I'm playing the clarinet or trombone or something. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do with the pianist being marching, right?
Yeah.
So you get to play the cymbals most of the time in the day. But then when I got to Hawaii, which was my duty station, mm-hmm. That was a gift. It was like a reward. Mm-hmm. Kaloian, you did very well. Let's reward you by sending you to Hawaii, our best band.
Yeah.
And so the generals and admirals in Hawaii got a hold of the information that here's this piano-playing Marine available to play for their cocktail parties and their soirees. Mm-hmm. And so once that word got out, probably that's the whole 3.5 years I was there. During the day, I would be in the regular band, and arranging, conducting, playing cymbals. And then at night, I'd be going and playing the admirals and generals' cocktail parties and official functions on the piano. So I worked a lot.
Yeah. I know a lot of your music is inspired by the Armenian heritage you have. Sometimes I speak to composers who say that music is just music, and although they feel inspired by some of the Armenian heritage that they have, it doesn't really come out naturally in their music. How did that come about for you, especially since you were born in LA?
Right. Sometime during those years in Armenia, you're right. I think maybe just by osmosis or something, the air, I was surrounded by musicians. I don't think anyone in Armenia isn't either a musician, an artist, a poet, a writer, something.
Yeah.
They all have that. So I would surround myself with, obviously, the students, but so being there, somewhere it turned from this abstract 12-tone life that I had to the Oriental scales. And I'd come home and find myself writing Armenian marches because that just felt natural. It came naturally. So an example is a piece I wrote called Marine Aviator. Sounds like a Marine march, right? Well, as soon as you hear it, he said, that is an Armenian-sounding march. Wow. It's one of the most downloaded pieces that I have.
Wow.
It's amazing how, just being there, I knew a few of the musicians, Loris Cheknavorian and a few others, but I didn't do anything professionally in music there. It fell into place more after I came back.
You have so many CDs. I was looking at some of those. How did the Cloud Media Group get started, and your publishing company? Was that to promote your music?
Well, definitely. I'd like to think I'm fiercely independent. So it again, maybe it's because my father was in business or something. It just was easier for me to learn more about how all of that works, and I'm not ashamed of technology in any way. I'm pretty natural with technology. So nowadays, it doesn't take as many tools as it used to produce music now. And so Cloud Media Group is my publishing arm because I learned Finale and Sibelius. And then on the New Note Records side, that's produced again using Macintosh, Logic, and Ableton and all that. But everyone can have those tools. You can go out and buy them. I think that it's the way they're assembled and the way you create your templates and your way of using them that really will sort of distinguish what you can instantly hear as sort of gamey, tinty sounding productions to what I hope are more of a finished, almost as if real life symphonic production. It took me probably 20 years over the years to get there, but I think I'm there.
Yeah.
And iTunes and Spotify have been really selling.
Yeah.
I mean, not well, but they do sell.
Yeah. And
so you're right. Pretty much independent. I've had offers to join up with other established labels, and I'm telling them, let's consider that maybe in the future. But I've got 7 albums out myself. I'm trying to push a few out each year, maybe one each quarter.
Another thing you would hear as a composer, or at least me from non-composer perspective, is that writing for orchestra is kind of getting out of fashion, I guess you should say. So what prompts you to still compose for orchestra and use that as a tool for your compositions? I
try to sort of separate what I do. I do have some works that are not orchestra, the electronic, but they're separate from. If I'm doing something symphonic, even if it's in the computer, it will be something that can actually be played by a real orchestra eventually. So I do separate them. Yeah. I think the orchestra is incredibly varied, and it's impossible to imagine all the combinations. And I like the fact that the shackles have sort of been stripped off of composition here in these last, let's say, 40 years. I hate to say it because some people are oversimplifying. They're saying, "Oh, now there's no rules."
Yeah.
And I say, no, that's not quite it. Mm-hmm. What you look for when you listen to a composer now is you look and you try to find what is it about him or her that makes their voice. If there is something that you can find that says that is that composer's voice, mm-hmm. then that composer to me is an artist made it.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
I don't like everything I listen to either, but I can find if a composer's voice is coming across, even if they've discarded all the rules and there's no sense, it's their voice, and you can find that, and it is an amazing time for classical music. It's the smallest, least profitable, least popular part of all the music genres, mm-hmm. but we're Armenians. We don't do things for the easy way.
So tell me about this improvisation. Is that your latest album, the 5 improvisations?
It's an organ CD. Uh-huh. So that's not the latest one. It's a few years old, but again, because of the computer, mm-hmm. I can take my choice of several European or American organs, mm-hmm. and actually create them here in my studio. Yeah. So I took the one in northern France, mm-hmm. as my setup, and then I created a CD of about 5 improvisations. Organ improvisation is an entire art unto itself.
Yeah.
And if you're asking more about me specifically, I would like to think that I'm well-rounded. I'd like to think that I've endeavored to undertake every possible thing available to me. Organ improvisation, there are composers who that's just pretty much their whole output, mm-hmm. like Dupre and these people.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I've got that, but then I've also written marches.
Yeah.
Then I've also written chamber music, yeah. and I've also written symphonic music, yeah. and I try to go as far as I can to understand each of those areas, because they are yeah. unto themselves.
Yeah.
But the organ one is among my most popular downloads
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
You can hear that French influence, and when I sit at the organ, it's as if the Franck, Dupre, Messiaen line
yeah.
has continued into me.
Yeah.
that's my take on it.
And from
Go ahead.
organ to prepared piano, what was that about? Did you play that CD, the prepared piano, since you're a pianist? Wow.
Again, in the old days, to prepare a piano, you'd have to dedicate an instrument. You'd have to fix each string or whatever with a specific, the kind of preparation.
Of course.
And you'd have to basically throw the instrument into that use. And that's great. You've prepared a piano.
Yeah.
And it's got a setting, and it's stuck in that setting. You can change them, but it takes a long time. Well, with technology, I said, not only am I going to compose 12 etudes for prepared piano, each of those 12 etudes will be a different prepared piano environment. So I was able to take advantage of technology again and do that. Some of those pieces of mine are like the #1 downloads right now.
Yeah.
One person wrote me, said, "This is what I listen to when I start my car." It has a mechanical, metallic sound that he likes. So I do have, again, talking about each of those genres of music being something unto themselves, I do have a line that goes into the percussion area. If you think of a prepared piano as maybe more half piano, half percussion. When I was at Cal Arts, just before the Marines, my teacher there was John Bergamo, who full-rounded composer, percussionist, but he played with Zappa too. If you listen to Zappa's album called Live in New York, Bergamo's on there.
Wow.
Again, forget symphonies for a while, just immersed me in the world of percussion and Varese and this sort of thing. So I've had the luxury of a lot of different times of life that were specialized. So the prepared piano is a tribute to those years. I still am in touch with Amy Knowles, who was in my class at Cal Arts, and she's now teaching percussion there. And she developed an area called electronic percussion. So she's actively teaching, electronic percussion techniques. So I'm staying in touch with her. But you could listen to my prepared piano piece, and then you could listen to a piece I've written maybe for 2 pianos, another march, and you say, is that the same composer? How did that happen?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's great to have those different approaches to music, because it gives variety, and also for the listeners, you get a wider range of people who would enjoy the music. If they don't like the marches, they'll like the prepared piano or the organ pieces.
Exactly.
Which one is the latest CD? Is that the Concerto for Orchestra?
Piano Concerto would be the latest.
Okay.
Concerto for Orchestra was the first one.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's about 3 years ago. And Concerto for Orchestra is probably going to be re-recorded by me, because even in those short 3 years, I've been able to really improve my online and technology. But the piano concerto, in just a short period of time, it started showing up on my Spotify channel. A few people must like it. So again, it just amazes me that the more and more I try to be independent, it's working out for me. Google has listed me now as a musical artist on the search and everything. So it's working out. Yeah.
It's been great. I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's great to hear about all these different things, and hopefully we'll talk more about many of your other projects that you're involved with over time. But I wanted to know, and this is something always interesting to me. I have another podcast that I do. This one is specifically for Armenian music, but I have another podcast that I do, and it's always interesting to me what musicians do outside of music.
I think the main thing I've done is in IT, because information technology is kind of natural cousin
Yeah.
to the music technology.
Yeah.
But I gave that, that career's now past. So because of my father, I had, a business background too. So maybe my next thing will be real estate investing or something.
Wow.
Something that has nothing to do with music again. But I find I work less and less with musicians over the years, which is, I am very upset about that, because when I was young, all I did was surround myself with musicians, music schools, band employment. Now I very rarely get to. So I'm going to have to do more interfacing with you and relying on the social media to get me back in touch.
Well, it was great because I spent a lot of time trying to find Armenian composers that wrote for orchestras, and I did so many things, and finally I came across your name, and I was like, wow, how come I never knew about this? But then I see composers all the time, and young composers much younger than you who are just starting their careers and writing for orchestra. So it's nice to see that there are Armenian composers out there doing this. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully we'll have you back on and talk more about the future projects and maybe the Concerto for Orchestra when you do a new release of the recording.
I'd be happy to spend a few minutes doing screen examples of how I produce.
Oh, wow.
So when we have more time, you're set up to do screen sharing.
Okay.
Violin concerto is halfway done now, and and then another couple projects. I have a CD planned of the national anthems of the world.
Wow!
Again, for orchestra.
Wow!
So again, that's going back to my military and ceremonial music days. So we'll have lots to talk about. I'll keep you informed, and
thank you.
Let me know if you have any questions.
Will do. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining me.